Camcorder Cameron here. Last night I watched Alien Romulus in theaters and I'm here to give you my thoughts. TLDR, if you're a fan of the Alien franchise, I highly recommend you see this in the movie theater. It's worth the price of a ticket. It's a spectacle. I had a blast. There's things to critique, which we can talk about today, but you won't be disappointed. Trust me, you won't be disappointed when you leave the theater. So starting off, I just want to make a little disclaimer that I've only seen Alien and Aliens. I haven't seen any other movie in the franchise, okay? So I'm sure that there's things that I missed out on in this movie because of that, but I still enjoyed the movie and could understand what was happening. So yes, I'm no Aliens expert. This is just my opinion on what I think based off of only seeing the first two movies, which I really like. I'm a fan of them. And the whole reason why I wanted to see this without, seeing any other movies besides the first two is honestly, I was advertised to. I think that the marketing team for this Alien Romulus movie, they're geniuses. They deserve a raise. I'm a person who avoids trailers. I never watch them. I think they give away too much and it can kind of just give you false advertising sometimes. So I avoid trailers. I didn't watch the trailer to this, of course, but you know what I did see? I saw their performance art they did in New York City, where if you missed it, it was all over social media as advertisement for this movie. And it worked for me. But basically what they did was they just had actors all around New York City with the alien succubus things on their face, which is just amazing. The photos are amazing. You just see careless New Yorkers going about their day just kind of looking at these alien infected people. But it just shows off the realness of their alien creature. I don't know. That impressed me. I love that. And also I think it goes so well with this franchise because the movie itself is like performance art. It's very art-like. It has a lot to say, a lot of different ways that you can interpret the aliens, and I just love the performance art. And then the next thing that advertised me, I already wanted to see it because I was like, oh my God, they did not do that. They did the art exhibit. But then I saw on TikTok which normally I swipe really fast whenever TikTok gives horror movie ads because they usually just play the trailer and I swipe really fast because I don't want to watch trailers. Well, what they did with this was they were showing the animatronics of the alien, the massive alien that they built. And they were just showing how they remote control it and how they remote control the little aliens. And that was excellent, wise promotion for this franchise because from day one, Alien has been all about practical effects. The original Alien was just a massive man in an amazingly crafted suit. So I loved seeing a modern Alien with modern technology. It's not CGI. No, they made a robot and it's a massive alien robot, and it's even more horrifying because it's bigger than what it would be if it was a man in a suit. So I saw that alien robot and I was like, oh okay, I really need to see this movie because I want to see that thing in action. All right, with all that being said, let's get into the movie. Spoilers ahead, watch out. You'll like this movie if you're a horror fan, you love creature features, you love rape revenge movies, and you love aliens. This movie delivered on all of those fronts. It's so many things at once. I can't stop rhyming like Dr. Seuss. I don't know why. It really is like a modern ode to the original two movies because it's got everything that's so classic about that movie. It's got the tunnel hole closing, that scraping noise. It's got the exact replica of the ship and all of their technology. Same exact costumes, same exact pods, same exact aliens, and it checks off all of the original scares kind of within the first half of the movie. You get a chest burster, classic, unforgettable scene from the first movie. It's just as scary the second time around. It is so horrifying seeing the alien burst through the chest. It's so freaky. It's so freaky. I love it. You get the face sucker. One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie is whenever this guy first gets, got by a face sucker, and they show it in the trailer. He's like, because the tentacle is trying to go in his mouth, and he doesn't know about the alien. He doesn't know what's happening. He's just like, being facially assaulted. That is absolutely horrifying. It's got the tall, long-headed alien. Oh, and it's got the big web where they string up the bodies on the web. It's got all of the best parts of the original 2 movies. It's still there. It's still the same things. And they take all of that and they give us new creature. A new creature and new little weird reproductive things that are going on. So I like that it's both an ode to the classic, but also they're coming up with their own new ways to be alien horror-y. So the pacing of this movie was that of an edging technique, I would say. It was really slow to begin, more like the original Alien movie, which this movie, it aligns itself the most with the first Alien, and I'll get more into why. But it starts out just like that, where they're slow, they're taking their time building up the dystopian society and the oppressive company and the poverty of the world now. And then it gets into the edging pacing where it's like, really scary moment. And then it calms down. Really scary moment. And then it calms down. And they use a lot of those scenes in between scary stuff to more like explain what's going on so you're not confused. Explain how the aliens work. Explain what their plan is technically to do in this ship to try and escape. They're explaining a lot of lore in those slower parts, and it was starting to frustrate me, the pacing, because a really great horror movie to me has a way of gripping you, making your heart race, and not letting you have a moment of relaxing until the movie's over. And there always comes to be that point usually in a horror movie, but for this one, they don't do it until the false ending. And a false ending is a classic trope in horror movies. It's a trope, but I love it, and you kind of come to expect it, where it seems like everything's settled down, the killer is dead, but he always comes back to life. The aliens always come back out of nowhere just when you think you're safe from them. So this movie, it did seem like it was having a conclusion, but that's when they decided to have their climax, where it seemed like the climax had already happened, but this time they gripped you in their fear and they didn't let go until the actual end of the movie. So that it was gratifying in the end, even though I had frustrations about the pacing because I just wanted to relish in the fear they were showing us, and they never really allowed us that, but they did come through in the end. And the final act of the movie is literally, you guys, you gotta freaking see it. Okay, let's get into characters. So basically, my biggest struggle with the movie is the characters, not the actors. All the actors did a great job. Their performances were very believable. The main actress, Kaylee Spaney, she works really well in this role. I can tell that they casted her with Sigourney Weaver in mind. They had very similar face shapes, and they both have big, beautiful eyes. So she does resemble Sigourney Weaver a little bit. And I love the way they styled her, is kind of in that masculine dress that they would style Sigourney in. But she did a wonderful job. She's our main character. She's kind of a nobody. And this is my struggle, is all of the characters are nobodies, really. And they kind of sometimes want to give you some character depth and have character development, and then sometimes they just don't. So I kind of wish that they went the route of not even trying to give us like a movie where they are trying to care about the characters. Like, let it just be cogs in the machine working for this company that we don't know that much about, but we're still gonna be on their side when they're trying to survive aliens, right? But instead, it starts off with her and her brother named Andy, and he's actually an artificial person, but she considers him her brother because like they grew up together and her father died, and her father had programmed Andy to have his mission in life be to protect her at all cost, do whatever is best for her. And so that's also got that connection of like brotherly relationship, but also he's kind of like a connection to her dead father through memory, because he always is telling dad jokes that the dad used to say. So it is kind of like the father's tied up in this brother character as well. Andy, in the beginning of the movie, he is very shy, unsure of himself, and awkward. He doesn't really get along with anybody else besides his sister, and also because other people don't like treat him with respect, because he is a little bit more awkward and different. But also people don't treat him with respect because he's an artificial person, which I really love. As you guys know, I'm a big Blade Runner fan, and this movie dips its toes into the philosophy of Blade Runner. Andy being our main example of that, because people don't treat him with respect just because he's a robot. He doesn't have real feelings, but to him, his feelings are real. I always go on the side of the robots in these sci-fi scenarios. I can empathize with them. I see them as real people, even if they're not. And you can tell that his sister Rain does see him as like a brother because of the emotional attachments. She's been working for so many years, and all she wants to do is go to her home planet and see the sunrise. So she'd do anything, even if it means going on the mission to steal some things from the company, which is exactly what she does. She meets up with some friends, doesn't really matter who they are. Like, they all have their own personalities, but they're nobodies. They're kind of nobodies. But there is some background, like maybe Rain dated one of them. One of them's her ex's sister who's pregnant, and they're all just kind of like this friend group. They're a friend group, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna go onto this ship and steal some pods or whatever, and we need Andy's help because he can speak mother, because he's a robot. He speaks robot, right? He can unlock all the doors for them. She's like, okay, well, he's not going without me. So then they all go into space, they find the ship, and it's the ship from the first movie, after everything that happened in the events of the first movie. The first thing that they see when they climb aboard the ship is Ash. Remember how in the end of the 1979 movie, you know, he gets severed. So they just see his torso, and Andy's right there with them. They see his torso. They're like, ah, oh my God. Oh, thank God. I thought it was a real person. Oh, thank God. And the camera closes up on Andy, who has this devastating look where you're like, oh my God. They don't see him as a real person. And that's exactly what he's thinking in the moment, because he's seeing one of his kind dismembered and freaking like seared to the ground. Body horror for him, right? And to hear somebody just be a complete ass and be like, oh my God, thank God it's not a real person, while Andy's like standing right there. Ugh, that's wrong. Wrong! Another example of how they're dipping their toes into the Blade Runner philosophy, where they're trying to show like, okay, the world doesn't see him as a real person, but he still has real feelings, and he's still afraid of death. So does that make him real? It's a question. As an audience member, you feel bad for him. Anyways, so they still don't know that this ship has been overrun by aliens yet. And we're actually seeing like the pods that the aliens are sleeping in, because the ship is still on its mission to preserve the alien life and take it back or whatever. Andy's getting them through all of the doors until they're in the Cairo chamber or whatever, and it's finally access denied. And at this point, all of the little crab-like aliens, they've woken up from their pods and they've been released. One of the buttons they pushed is like triggered it, and they're standing in a pool of water. And I like that element because water is always a big theme in the Alien franchise, because in the original there's rain, and it's also in this movie. You think it's rain, but you later find out it's like the alien above, and that's what's dripping what you think is rain. But this is like they're standing in knee-deep water, and these little aliens that look like horseshoe crabs are swimming in the water, jumping out, trying to get their face. That's when you get that really great moment of the red light, and the guy's like trying not to get got. They're smacking him. Andy the robot, he has this thing where if he gets hit too hard, he kind of like freezes up, I guess because he's an old model or whatever. He like seizes up and can't really get out of that until his sister can go behind his ear and reset it. They end up getting out of there, but Hacker's sister Rain is like, oh my god, let me take the chip from Ash, you know, the severed body, dead Ash. She's like, let me take his chip and put it in Andy, and then we can figure out what really happened. This is probably the weakest part of the movie for me, is Andy's character development. I do not like the part of the movie. I really don't, but they put this chip inside Andy, and it's confusing because it's like, it's not like he's a different person completely. Like, there's still Andy in there, but slowly it seems like the other chip is overriding, almost like a virus taking over. And he's still Andy, but it becomes like an evil version of Andy, where his main mission is no longer to protect Rain and do what's best for her, but his mission is now to do what's best for the company. He has this chip in him, and immediately, you know, he has a very clear difference because he's moving really fast. He's like spitting out this information where he knows some stuff about the aliens, but not other stuff. Like whenever one of the things comes out and face hugs a character, and she's in the whole homeostasis where it's keeping her alive, he says that. He's like, don't kill it because it's helping her, it's keeping her alive, it'll strangle her if you try and get it or whatever. Like, he knows that stuff, but he can't exactly know like how to get it off, right? He doesn't have that type of information, but he does know all about the ship and more controls with the ship. So it's not really explained what he knows and what he doesn't know. And Rain, his sister, takes like a long time to realize that the chip has done some damage to him. But it takes away Andy's humanity because Andy stops, you know, just caring about their escape. He's like just completely about the possibilities of survival. What are the chances we'll get out of this? If it means he's not going to open the door for somebody else and we all just have to watch them die, that's what it means, you know? He doesn't have that type of empathy, which in some cases works because they're able to get Ash, the dead robot, they're able to get him working. And Ash is our villain, right? You remember in the first movie, he turns out really evil. You know, he tries to sexually assault Sigourney Weaver at the end there. Like, he was the villain in the first movie, and he's very much, you know, Michael Myers back from the dead. He's the villain again, and he's on that same mission of just trying to get the alien life form, and he doesn't care about humans. But he says that directly to Andy. He says, hey, you know, you're in the advantage because sometimes humans, they can have all these weak emotions, but you have the privilege of not having those emotions, so take the lead. And he does. He does not care. He does not care whenever other people die. And that is where Rain really is struggling to finally see him as like a brother, because she feels betrayed. She's like, how can you just stand there and let her die? And he's like, well, if I opened the door, then we would have all been dead anyways. But she still is like got that emotional struggle that he doesn't have. But again, it doesn't make sense because it feels like the original Andy would have that emotional struggle. So I'm kind of confused there. Anyways, eventually Rain is able to get that chip out of Andy, and he's like back to normal. He's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry for what I did. He has memories of the stuff he was doing, but he's just like back to being himself. And my biggest struggle with Rain was that she knew whenever they went to rob this ship and go back to her home planet, she knew in her home planet they don't allow artificial persons, so he would get there and be deactivated. Well, she didn't even tell him that. He had to find out, like, from these bullies in the group who are like, doesn't matter because you'll be dead by the time we get there. Like, he learns it in a way of these bullies, like, making fun of him and just basically telling him again that he's not real, and it's a real betrayal, and you see it all over his face. David Johnson, the actor, just does a really, really excellent job of portraying the emotion of despair and betrayal. And he's a perfect film actor because he has all these little subtle changes he can make in his facial expression to express so many different emotions. So he's perfectly casted for this role because he's supposed to be a robot, but he is very, wearing his heart on his sleeve. He is, and he's always got this tortured look on his face. So when he's back to being himself, he's not flat affect, all about escaping the ship and what are the odds. He's back to being his empathic, sensitive self. And I don't understand. That's why I wish that they focus less on the character between Rain and Andy, because ultimately I don't think it carried through in the ways that it wanted to. It just got lost in the sauce with him getting the chip override, and because she already had betrayed him by, deciding without even consulting him that he'll be deactivated when they escape. And by the end of the movie, she's like, okay, I'm going to find a way to fix you, and I don't even care anymore. Like, we're going to figure out a way. I won't let them deactivate you. But you don't understand why she had that change of heart. Was it just because they went through this traumatic alien movie together and she feels closer to him than ever? Like, you don't really see where she changes her mind. Because if anything, you would think all the events that she went through with Andy on the ship, you think that would make her feel less sympathetic for him and feel more like he's just a robot and I was just personifying him, and I just need to accept the fact that what he feels and what I feel are not the same thing. His is all fake. I thought that was kind of the arc they were trying to take, but then she's randomly at the very end like, yeah, I'm gonna figure out a way to save you. I care about you. I don't get how she got there. That's my biggest critique about the characters. I just wish that they didn't care that much about them, because they didn't. They're all gonna die off. This is a horror movie. So I guess they wanted to give it some heart, but I think that this movie's just as effective with the coldness if they didn't go with the whole emotional heart route. But let's talk about the scares. So I was freaking scared. I was scared. I literally was like this. I wore this dress. I had a jacket. I was like peeping under the jacket. I made the mistake. It's not a mistake, but I did go see it by myself. So I didn't even have my boyfriend's arm to cling to. I was scared. It has jump scares, which I feel like is good for a modern audience, because if you don't have some of the jump scares, there's already going to be a lot of people that are going to be disappointed with it, but people are always going to be disappointed. I think that this movie was really scared, but the first thing I heard from some people when I was leaving the movie theater was I was hearing them complain, oh, this movie wasn't that scary. They should have made it scarier. To each their own. Those people obviously didn't think it was scary enough. I thought it was freaking horrifying. So that's more subjective, but I do think that this movie delivers on the alien visuals. The aliens, they look so amazing. They look so amazing. And it delivered on this Cronenberg-esque freakiness that the Alien original movie, they touch on, but this movie takes it. The biggest example of that is the massive alien yoni. We have a scene where some goons are, they crash the ship or whatever, and they're just in the alien environment trying to escape or whatever, and they stumble upon a massive female yoni, and I'm not talking it's an alien supposed to somewhat resemble a female genitalia. No, this is literally a giant vulva. Like, couldn't be more obvious. It's pink, it's oozing, it's got the multiple folds. It is a giant, giant vulva. Amazing. I freaking love it because it just adds to the metaphor of what the aliens represent. And that's why I said in the beginning that this movie could be seen as a rape revenge movie, because I feel like a lot of times the alien creatures themselves are a metaphor for females or are conceptualized ideas of women in society. And it couldn't get more obvious than this scene where they find the giant alien thing. And what does the man do? And of course it has to be a man. He has this giant phallic taser. He inserts it into the opening and he sets off, a series of electrical tases in rapid succession. Clearly meant to portray a sexual assault scene because the alien's not consenting to that. He's being violent, and it's uncomfortably long because it's just a really unsettling, weird thing to see, and it ends with an ejaculation, a female ejaculation. He fires off a bunch of the tases until the thing runs out of tasing juice, takes it out, and the alien opening lets out a bunch of alien blood fluid. And the alien blood fluid is, of course, acidic, as we've learned from our first Alien movies. The alien blood, it rips a hole in the ship. Well, he's standing under it when this happens. So that is our rape revenge right there, okay? You rape the alien, you get killed by the ejaculate. You do. I freaking love it. It was like a total... To me, it reminded me a lot of Teeth. If you guys have ever seen that movie, that scene alone was just like a mix of David Cronenberg and Teeth, all with the alien. And then, after you think that happens, because you're seeing him being like acid death, very gory, well then the vulva births out a full-bodied alien. And of course, we've learned from the other movies, that's not how the reproductive system worked. It's, the face huggers implant the seed and the babies are born through bursting through a chest. Well, what emerged, I think that the vulva, I think that that's just kind of where the full-bodied aliens sleep in. But it does resemble a birth because whenever the alien emerges from the vagina, they come out in a fetal position. But it's really, really cool in slow-mo because, of course, we're in outer space. And it's just like that whole scene of the alien coming out of the vagina. And it looks small because it's in fetal position, but then it grows to its full height. And, of course, this is the animatronic one. I do think there are several scenes where they have people inside suits being the xenomorphs. But they also have our scary electronic one. And that is when our pregnant character, you think that she's dead. So Kay, we learn in the beginning of the movie, she's pregnant. Something's gonna happen with that because this movie loves females. You got Mother, the spaceship intelligence. And so I was thinking, okay, she's gonna be a real mother. How is that gonna come into play? And then, you also have from the movie Aliens, we know that there's a real life, alien mother, right? So something's gonna go down. Anytime there's a pregnant woman in a horror movie, something's gonna go down with that baby. It's not just gonna be an invisible thing in her stomach. Oh no, they waited. So whenever the alien emerges from the birthing canal, it kills her. And that's the scene where Andy won't open the door for her and it spears her with its tail, bloody. And after so many other bloody alien deaths, you're like, oh, she's a goner. But she does come back into play. Eventually, they hear her screaming. They find her strung up on the web of alien bodies for later. And I liked this reasoning, because I never really understood that. I didn't understand if they strung up bodies whenever they implanted their chests with seed to wait for the chest burster or what. But they did kind of explain it with her. They were like, oh, she's losing too much blood. That's why they put her here. And they didn't impregnate her or whatever. Because she was her throat had been slit. She was actively bleeding out. Well, she's still alive somehow. And the baby's still alive somehow. But anyways, they try to save her, and this is where my knowledge of the Alien franchise didn't do me any help, because I think that this is what I was missing, is somewhere in one of the Alien movies that I haven't seen, tell me if I'm wrong, but is the rat thing, where it's kind of like a steroid shot that they introduce, but the steroid has something to do with the xenomorph science. So it's like this thing that they made. They do explain it, but they explain it so quickly, and I still was like confused about what it was. She's not supposed to shoot herself with the alien steroid, but she does, because she's bleeding out and she's trying to make it back to the ship. She shoots herself with that, and it gives her the strength, which you're like, ugh! It's annoying because Rain told her not to, but she does it anyways. Andy and Rain, you know, they have their big battle with the alien in the elevator chute. They're trying to get away. They're the only 3 people surviving now, is the 2 women and the fake person, which I love. I love that the alien movies always loves to kill off men. Well, anyways, they all finally make it back to the ship. The pregnant lady goes in her cryo sleep. It all seems to be okay. This is the false conclusion where they're flying away from the big mothership over here that they were trying to invade. Their ship is flying away from it. They've escaped. All these aliens are left there to die. Well, no, because something's going on. She's hearing screaming from the pregnant girl's chamber. She opens her up and she's like screaming, and it's unclear because we're only seeing her, it's like a casket that she kind of pulls her out of a drawer, and we're only seeing her like chest up, and she's kind of like, you think that maybe another chest burster is about to happen because of the way that she's reacting, but then Rain pulls her out of the drawer more, and you see her belly has gone from flat, very beginning stages of pregnancy, to she is full-blown final trimester actively giving birth. I mean, if you're pregnant, don't recommend this movie at all, because A, it's really scary, probably not good for the baby, and B, not good for your mental health, because it is like the worst case scenario pregnancy, which as a female is a very successful form of horror, of body horror. Seeing a very gory birth in a disaster situation where the alien steroid has made her baby rapidly, she's now giving birth to a baby. It's freaking scary. She births out like this weird placenta looking sac thing. It's fun because the way that they've designed this sac is it's kind of a callback to the very first time we see alien life in the original 1979 version. Do you remember those little pod flowers that had these eggs inside them? That's what it looks like she just gave birth out of. And Rain's right there ready to like freaking annihilate it with some freezing spray, but then it kind of blossoms and opens up, and you see the real life human baby inside. It looks like a human, and so she hesitates when she sees the real baby in there. And I didn't even mention how scary it was whenever she freaking ripped the umbilical cord. That was very body horror, horrifying. Anyways, the baby emerges from the sac, and the blood kind of forces them to fall down to the floor below them. Rain goes after it. She finds the sack. The baby inside is gone. She's like looking, hunting for it. Hears a scream upstairs. Well, Mama's been dead. The baby killed the mom. The baby killed Andy. And it's not a baby anymore. The baby is now a full-grown man. And I love it. This was like, the cherry on top. As a horror lover, this was the moment, because they made a freaky looking humanoid alien thing where its head looked like a man, its body looked like a xenomorph with like pale translucent skin, and its genitalia was that of a female. It was honestly beautiful. I loved the way that they made that look. It was huge, and that was the final boss that Rain had to battle, and she killed it in a very similar way. Throwback to when Sigourney Weaver put on the spacesuit and sucked the alien out. She does a little bit of that, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful little final battle scene. I had fun. I was so impressed. I was so impressed with the look of that final alien because at that point, it all had kind of been the same sort of aliens we'd seen before, which I didn't mind because this is part of that franchise. This is called Alien Romulus. We've come to see the aliens that we all know and love. I didn't expect them to make a humanoid thing. So then she's like, she survives. Everything's good. She put Andy in the Cairo chamber and she's like, I'll fix you. And they're flying off to her home planet. She's not sure if she's going to make it or not. Hopefully she will. And that's how it ends. I love it. I love it because it's so much like the first one. And I love the first one. But this is so much scarier because it just kind of applies like different ways of scaring you and adding tension. I wish that it just kept up the pace a little bit more and tried to explain itself less. But in other ways, I really did enjoy that they explained it because I was like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I would be confused because I hadn't seen so many of the movies. But they do explain it for an audience member like me who doesn't really know what those movies had happened. Like, they're like spelling it out for you, which sometimes, like whenever I'm an expert in a movie franchise, I can be annoyed whenever they're explaining stuff to modern audiences. I'm like, okay, we get it. We're the people you're making the movie for, right? So do with that information what you will. There is a lot of explaining, but I had a blast watching this movie. I love all it has to say about I don't know. It doesn't have a clear message, which is what I like. I like that it's very ambiguous about exactly what the aliens stand for. I don't know. I just love how feminine the aliens are, and I love how this is a widely loved franchise that explores female body horror, you know? It's not body horror for everybody. It's female body horror. We're getting foreign reproductive systems, and I that's what I love about the original movie too, is that it takes the theme of sexual assault and it applies that to both male and females. Like, it's a fear for everyone, especially with the whole face hugger thing. Like, I like that. I really do like that because I just don't think that that's something that movies talk about a lot. I think that this is just a really fun way to explore that kind of fear in a safe environment. Anyways, that's just my rapid fire first impressions on why I loved Alien Romulus. It definitely had its weaknesses, like I said, with the character development and with the whole steroid plot. That was kind of thrown out there. I like that they brought back Ash as a character. Even though Ian Holm, the actor, did die in 2020 at age 80, so he was not alive for this movie. They did the facial recognition system where they've done it before in movies, but that doesn't always work when people do that in movies. Even with our super advanced technology, like, our brains are so hardwired to recognize like human faces that it's really easy for it to look like Uncanny Valley and obviously not real. But it works for Ash's scenario because he is a robot, he's not a real life person, and he's also like torn to shreds and kind of ripped apart. So they don't need to worry too much about making it look like a real person. And even though it didn't look exactly like a real face, it worked because it was a robot. So that was really excellently done. I liked his character because, I mean, it's the same villain, you know? It's the same villain. It was fun to see him be taken down again. Poor guy. He was just on his Doofenshmirtz evil behavior, you know? He is that kind of villain. And he tried to indoctrinate Andy. And that's the part I didn't like. I didn't like that whole struggle. It didn't make sense to me, but I would love to hear what I missed as like an outside fan. Like, what did you guys really love that this movie made a callback to? Would you like to explain some more of the alien lore that I don't understand? Let me know what I'm missing, but even if I am missing stuff, I still had a great time watching it, and I felt like I understood the movie, and I felt like I was in awe of the movie. I love it, and I would love to see more creative ways that movies advertise themselves beyond a trailer. As a trailer hater, I think this movie did a great job with marketing. Great job with bringing an old franchise to a modern audience, giving the old fans exactly what they wanted while also making it feel fresh. They did a good job of balancing it between new Alien fans and old Alien fans. Whenever you have a big IP franchise that's so beloved, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult to make something like that. And it's not going to be perfect. And it's always going to upset some fans and ruffle some feathers. I think that they did a good valiant effort. Do I think it needs a sequel? No, I don't think we need the next Romulus. Do I think we'll get one? Yeah, I do think we'll probably get another Alien movie, and hopefully it'll be just as good, if not better. I hope they don't go downhill from here, because I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you, okay? I'm here saying in 2024, out of all the people that maybe loved the Alien movies but didn't love this one, I loved it, and I think it's worth a watch. In a world of so many remakes and so many freaking adding on to franchises like Scream 7, I saw that a trailer that I watched was The Crow, the remaking The Crow. It looks terrible. In a world where they're just trying to make money off of movies with existing IPs, in a world I think that this one has its own place and is worth going to see. So I'm rambling. I gotta get to a dinner. Gosh, I just feel like I have so much to say, but I'm gonna call it a day. We can talk more about it in the comments. Thanks for watching this review. Thank you to all my Patreon members and channel supporters. I love you guys. All right, Camcorder Camerin signing out.